After returning from a trip, I found my bags left on the sidewalk with a note attached. It said, "If you want to stay here, the garage is yours. Love, your daughter-in-law." Before the taxi arrived, I had already called the bank because I was the one paying the mortgage. I stared at my 4 suitcases, all neatly lined up on the sidewalk, unable to believe what I was seeing. I had just spent a week visiting my sister in Seattle. All I wanted was to come home, sit in my favorite armchair, and enjoy a cup of tea. But instead, I found myself locked out of my own house. Rain clouds gathered above me as I picked up the note from the handle of my largest suitcase. The handwriting was familiar, sharp and slanted, always seeming rushed. The note read, "If you want to stay here, we have the garage. Your loving daughter-in-law." I held the note tightly, my hands shaking. I had lived in that house for 35 years. Thomas and I built it together when Ryan was just a baby. We planted every tree, chose every light fixture, and painted every wall. After Thomas died 2 years ago, I agreed to sign the house over to Ryan and Chelsea, at least on paper. But I was still the one secretly paying the mortgage. Before the taxi even pulled away, I fumbled for my phone and called the bank, needing to hear the truth for myself. "Yes, Mrs. Paris, your automatic payment of $1,867 went through last Friday as scheduled," the customer service representative said. "Thank you," I whispered, hanging up the phone. A heavy raindrop fell on my forehead as I stood there, 68 years old, looking at my bags on the sidewalk. Then the sky opened up, as if giving me permission to cry. I should have seen this coming. The sideways looks between Ryan and Chelsea whenever I talked about redoing my kitchen. The not-so-subtle remarks about senior living communities where I wouldn't have to worry about the garden. The way they rearranged the living room while I was visiting my sister last Christmas, moving my favorite reading chair down to the basement. Small things. But they weren't small at all. The garage door was unlocked. Inside, a twin mattress leaned against the wall, with a small nightstand and lamp next to it. My clothes were hanging on a portable rack. My books, photos, and keepsakes were packed in cardboard boxes labeled Mom's stuff in Chelsea's handwriting. I sank down onto the mattress, feeling the cold concrete floor beneath my feet. Through the small window, I could see the house where I had raised my son, buried my husband, and now, it seemed, lost my place in the world. My phone buzzed with a message from Ryan. "Mom, we need the space. Chelsea has wanted a home office for months. The garage apartment has everything you need. Don't make this difficult. Don't make this difficult." As if I was the problem. I was never someone who cried easily. But tears came then, quietly and hot on my cheeks. I thought of all the nights I stayed awake with Ryan during his asthma attacks as a child. The second job I took to pay for his college when Thomas's business struggled. The weekends I spent watching the grandkids so Ryan and Chelsea could have time together. And now, I was just a burden. Someone to be hidden away in the garage. I didn't reply to Ryan's message. Instead, I called Susan, my oldest friend. "Linda, what's wrong?" she asked, hearing the pain in my voice. "I need a place to stay," I said, the words catching in my throat like broken glass. "They put me in the garage." Susan didn't ask any questions. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said. As I waited, sitting on that thin mattress surrounded by the boxed-up remnants of my life, I made a decision. This house had been my heart for 35 years. I'd poured everything into it, my love, my savings, my dreams, and now they thought they could simply push me aside. The garage door rattled as the rain intensified outside. I looked at my trembling hands and slowly curled them into fists. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I wasn't just Ryan's mother or Thomas's widow. I was Linda Harris, and I was done being invisible. Susan showed up with her nephew, Brian. Brian was not what I expected. With his jeans and Henley shirt, he looked more like a college professor than a lawyer. But his eyes were sharp as he reviewed the mortgage statements I'd brought. "So, you've been making payments on a house that's no longer in your name," he said, frowning, "and your son and daughter-in-law have been living there rent-free while planning to sell it?" Put so bluntly, it sounded absurd, even to me. "Yes." "And they evicted you to the garage?" I nodded, embarrassment flushing my cheeks. How had I allowed things to reach this point? "You have options," Brian said. "The financial arrangements could constitute a verbal contract. At minimum, you could sue for recovery of the mortgage payments you've made since the property transfer." Susan, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, spoke up. "She needs to confront them first. Make them understand what they've done." Brian looked skeptical, but I knew Susan was right. Before taking legal action against my own son, I needed to give him one last chance to make things right. That's how I found myself standing on the porch of my own home the next day, my heart pounding as I rang the doorbell. I'd lived in this house since before Ryan was born. Yet here I was, a visitor requiring permission to enter. Chelsea answered, her surprise quickly masked with a tight smile. "Linda, we weren't expecting you." "I need to speak with you and Ryan," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Of course. Come in." The living room had changed again since I'd left. My reading lamp was gone, replaced by a modern floor lamp I didn't recognize. The family photos I'd arranged on the mantel had been rearranged, with several of Thomas now missing. Ryan emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I came to talk about the house," I said. "Susan told me you're planning to sell it." Their exchanged glance confirmed everything. "We were going to tell you," Ryan said, not quite meeting my eyes, "once everything was finalized." "Finalized?" I echoed. "This was my home for 35 years. Your father and I built this house. We raised you here." Chelsea sighed dramatically. "Linda, we understand you have sentimental attachments, but we need to do what's best for our family now." "Your family," I repeated. "And what am I?" An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. "Mom," Ryan finally said, his tone patronizing, "you signed the house over to us. We appreciate everything you've done, but it's our property now. We get to decide what happens to it." I took a deep breath. I've been paying the mortgage for the past 2 years. Every month, $1,867 from my account to keep a roof over your heads. Another glance between them. They'd known. "That was your choice," Chelsea said coolly. "We never asked you to do that." My hands began to tremble. "I did it to help you because that's what family does." "And we're grateful," Ryan said, though his tone suggested anything but. "But that doesn't change the legal situation. The house is ours. So my 35 years here, my financial support, my role in this family, none of that matters?" Ryan shrugged, looking uncomfortable but unmoved. "Mom, you're making this more dramatic than it needs to be. We can help you find a nice senior apartment." "I don't need a nice senior apartment," I snapped. "I need my son to show an ounce of decency and respect." Chelsea stepped forward, her smile tight. "Linda, I think you're getting emotional. Perhaps we should continue this conversation another time." That's when I knew, truly knew, that there was no fixing this. The son I'd raised, the boy I'd loved with every fiber of my being, was gone. In his place stood a stranger who saw me as nothing more than an obligation, a problem to be managed. "I've stopped the automatic mortgage payments," I said quietly. Ryan's expression changed instantly. "You what?" "If you want to sell my home, you'll need to pay for it yourselves." "You can't do that," Chelsea's voice rose. "What about our credit?" "We have plans." "Yes," I said. "I hear Oakwood Hills is lovely this time of year." Ryan's face darkened. "Mom, the house was Dad's gift to me. You know that it was never really yours." The words hit me like a physical blow. Never really yours. 35 years of my life dismissed in 5 words. "I see," I said, my voice barely audible. "Well, then I suppose there's nothing left to discuss." I turned to leave, my legs unsteady beneath me. As I reached the door, I paused, looking back at the son who no longer saw me. "Your father would be ashamed of you, Ryan. And for the first time, so am I." I walked out, closing the door softly behind me. That afternoon, armed with information from Trevor and legal advice from Brian, I took another unexpected step in my new life. I applied for a job. The help wanted sign in the window of Rosie's cafe had caught my eye as I walked back to Susan's house. "You want to wait tables?" Susan asked, eyebrows raised when I told her. "I was a waitress all through college," I reminded her. "And I need my own income, my own life. I can't just hide out in your spare room forever." Susan considered this. "Well, Rosie's does have the best pie in town." 2 days later, I had my first shift. My feet ached and my back screamed by the end of it, but the tips in my pocket were mine, earned by my own hands. The simple satisfaction of that was something I hadn't felt in years. When I returned to Susan's, exhausted but oddly invigorated, there were 6 missed calls from Ryan on my phone. I listened to the first voicemail. "Mom, the bank called about the mortgage. They mentioned something about a lien." "What are you doing?" "Call me back immediately." I deleted it without listening to the others. For once, Ryan would have to wait for my convenience, not the other way around. Susan brought me a glass of wine and sat beside me on the porch swing. "How does it feel?" she asked softly. I considered the question, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "It feels like I'm finally waking up," I said. "Like I've been sleepwalking since Thomas died. And now you're Linda again." Susan finished for me. I nodded, raising my glass in a small toast. "To Linda Harris, it's nice to finally meet her." After 3 weeks of working at Rosie's Cafe, I had settled into a routine that felt surprisingly comfortable. My tips were modest but steady, and the physical work kept my mind occupied. More importantly, I had a purpose again, somewhere to be. People who relied on me, a life that was entirely my own, which is why the sight of Ryan standing awkwardly by the hostess stand a jolt through me. "Mom," he said, his voice softer than I'd heard it in years. "Can we talk?" Rosa, the owner, caught my eye from behind the counter. "Take 15 if you need it, Linda." I nodded and led Ryan to a corner booth away from my regulars who had become something like friends. "You look different," he said, studying me. I smoothed down my apron. "I am different." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, about the house." "I'm not discussing that here," I interrupted. "If that's why you came, you're wasting your time." "Please," he said, a note of desperation creeping into his voice. "Chelsea and we're in trouble. The bank called about the lien and our credit scores dropping because of the missed payments." I observed my son, his expensive watch, his carefully styled hair, the subtle scent of cologne that probably cost more than I made in a day at Rosie's. Everything about him screamed entitlement and comfort. A life cushioned by someone else's sacrifice. "What do you want from me, Ryan?" He leaned forward. We need you to lift the lien and resume the payments just until we can sell the house. The sheer audacity of it almost made me laugh. And what do I get in return? We'll make sure you're taken care of, he said as if offering a great kindness. There's a really nice senior community in Westbrook. Stop, I said, raising my hand. I'm not interested in being taken care of. I've been taking care of myself and you for years. Mom, be reasonable. You can't keep working here. He gestured around the cafe dismissively. You're almost 60. 58? I corrected. And I'm doing just fine. Ryan's face hardened slightly, his mask of contrition slipping. Fine. What do you want? A percentage of the sale? I studied him. This stranger wearing my son's face. I want my home back. He blinked, then laughed nervously. That's not possible. We've already made an offer on the house in Oakwood Hills. Not my problem. Ryan's expression darkened. It is your problem if you want a relationship with your granddaughter, with any of us. The threat hung in the air, ugly and explicit. My own son using my love for his daughter as leverage. Are you threatening to keep Emma from me? He had the decency to look slightly ashamed but pressed on. I'm just saying families need to support each other. Chelsea and I have a plan for our future and you're standing in the way. The way I stood in the way when I paid your college tuition. When I watched Emma every weekend so you two could have couple time. When I signed over the house and kept making payments so you could buy that boat last summer. Ryan flushed. That's not fair. No, I said it's not. My break was almost over. I stood up, straightening my apron. I need to get back to work. Mom, please. Ryan's voice cracked slightly. We need this. The house in Oakwood Hills is perfect. We can't lose it. For a moment, I saw the little boy who used to climb into my lap with scraped knees, looking to me to make everything better. But that boy was gone. In his place sat a man who saw me as nothing more than a means to an end. I'll think about it, I said finally, but I need something in writing from you and Chelsea first. Meet me at Brian Wallace's office tomorrow at 2. Relief washed over Ryan's face. Thank you, Mom. You won't regret this. As he left, I wondered if I already did. The next day, I arrived at Brian's office early, my stomach in knots. I'd barely slept, going over and over the decision I'd reached in the middle of the night. Ryan and Chelsea arrived precisely at 2, both dressed like they were attending a business meeting. Chelsea's smile was tight but triumphant. Thank you for coming, Brian began. Mrs. Harris has considered your request regarding the property on Maple Avenue. We appreciate that, Chelsea cut in smoothly. We're certain we can reach an agreement that benefits everyone. Brian slid a document across the desk. This is what Mrs. Harris proposes. Ryan picked it up. His expression shifted quickly from hopeful to confused to furious. What is this? He demanded. That I said calmly is my condition for lifting the lien. I will resume the mortgage payments, but the house will be sold to me, not to strangers. Chelsea snatched the paper. This is ridiculous. You want us to sell you the house for the remaining mortgage balance? It's worth at least 3 times that. It's worth exactly what I've put into it, I replied. 35 years of payments, repairs, and memories. Ryan's face turned red. You can't do this. The house is legally ours. With a lien against it, Brian interjected, which significantly complicates any sale. We'll get our own lawyer, Chelsea snapped. You can try, I said, but the process will take time, months, maybe years. Your credit will continue to drop. The stall in that dream home in Oakwood Hills, It'll be sold long before you get a ruling. The truth landed hard. You planned this all along, Ryan muttered. From the moment we moved you to the garage. No, I said quietly. I just finally stopped allowing myself to be used. Chelsea stood abruptly. We need to discuss this privately. As they stepped out, Brian gave me a small nod. You're doing the right thing, Mrs. Harris. I wasn't sure. The look of betrayal in Ryan's eyes haunted me. Had I become as cold as they were? Minutes later, they returned, faces grim. We uncle accept your offer, Ryan said stiffly. But I hope you realize what this means for our relationship. I do, I said steady. And I hope someday you realize what it meant when you put my suitcases on the sidewalk. Hi, besties. If this story moved you, reminded you of your worth, or made you think twice about letting anyone walk all over you, please don't just scroll away. Drop a comment with the city you're watching from so I can see how far this message is reaching. Subscribe to my channel for more emotional, powerful stories like this. Stories about betrayal, resilience, karma, and triumph. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that just might be your own reflection. Because remember, your story isn't over. And neither is your power. Stay strong, stay bold, stay subscribed.